I'm Nick DiGiovanni, and this is the WIRED Autocomplete Interview. The last thing I Googled, I was trying to make a French omelet for the first time. Okay, first board. Where is Nick DiGiovanni from? I am from Rhode Island. Specifically, I was born in Providence. Rhode Island, you might know, is the smallest state, and it's also the ocean state, so it's surrounded by a lot of water, and I think that's where my love for seafood comes from. Where did Nick DiGiovanni go to college? I don't know still why they let me in, but I went to Harvard. I studied environmental science there, but I also got to take a lot of classes that had something to do with food. So I basically took every single possible class that I could take related to food in some way. And they actually had a lot of different classes that were about food. I spent a whole semester just learning everything there is to know about chocolate. Where does Nick DiGiovanni get his knives? Great question too. The tough part is I use a lot of different types of knives, but my favorite type of knife in general will be an 8-inch chef's knife. And I usually get them from two different places. One comes from this company, a really old company that's been making knives for a long time called Zwilling. And then the other more custom knives that I use come from a knife maker who lives in New Hampshire named Zach Jonas. He just finds different trees, cuts out, different handles from the trees, and then basically makes all of these different knives by hand, and I can customize exactly what I want that really cool steel Damascus pattern on each blade to look like. I probably have about 150 knives. I love knives. It's kind of scary. Where did Nick DiGiovanni go to culinary school? I didn't go to culinary school. I did do a 2-week-long boot camp at the CIA, not like a special agent by any means. It's the Culinary Institute of America, and their main campus is in New York. That's one of the best, or the best culinary school in the country, but I didn't actually go there. When did Nick DiGiovanni start YouTube? I think my first video I posted was probably in 2019 when I finished MasterChef. And then I didn't actually start making videos consistently until I think late 2020. So it took me a little bit of time to figure out a good formula and catch the YouTube bug where I just wanted to wake up and think about it every single day. We're definitely gonna pass 1,000 videos pretty soon. When did Nick DiGiovanni win MasterChef? That's a trick question in a way because I didn't win MasterChef. I got third. I was on season 10 and I got to the finale, but then I didn't win. Nice that people think that I did. When did Nick DiGiovanni start cooking? I forget the exact age, to be honest with you, but I know it was between 7 and 8 years old. I saw my grandmother, I saw my great-grandparents cooking. I loved watching, I loved being in the kitchen. I liked the smells, the sounds, just the warmth near the stove, and just being with family and having fun with some food. I was just running around the kitchen, just grabbing different things off the counter when somebody else was cooking and just trying to eat it. Helping, but probably not actually helping, if you know what I mean. Right away, food was what I loved. When did Nick DiGiovanni get famous? That's a crazy question. What does famous even mean though? I don't have an answer for that. Thank you. What is Nick DiGiovanni's favorite food? Rotisserie chicken. It's the best. I love rotisserie chicken. I oftentimes go to the market, I get one, I eat the whole thing by myself. Then I take all the bones and I make a chicken stock, just with maybe some onions, some carrots, some celery, butter, olive oil, and a few different seasonings, and then just throw all the chicken bones in there and just slowly let it go for a while, all covered in water. You just make this delicious, comforting broth that I'll just take a cup all day and I'll slowly drink it until it's all gone, and then I'll top it off with more water and kind of make it again. It lasts forever. One other nice thing is that if you save the rind of your Parmesan cheese, throw that rind in there, it gives a really nice kind of cheesy umami flavor to your stock or your broth. That's my favorite food because A, it's delicious, it's fall apart tender, and chicken is so good. But B, because I can find this really great second use for it where I can have this really flavor-packed broth that I can drink for so long. What is Nick DiGiovanni's signature dish? I would have to say my signature dish would be a fresh handmade pasta with some kind of seafood. It could really be any kind of seafood, but because I grew up in Rhode Island and there was lots of fresh seafood around, and now I live in Boston, I love a good fresh pasta with whatever seafood I can get my hands on. Oh, this is a two-part. What camera does Nick DiGiovanni use? Okay, we use all Sonys, but sometimes I also just pull out my iPhone and I get shots that way now too. We've learned that people are much more comfortable if there's just an iPhone filming versus a bigger camera. And so there are certain places and certain times where it just makes sense to pull out a phone and it's so much easier that way, and it's so much more comfortable for people that way. There's something about a camera and a lens that just scares a lot of people for some reason, whereas they're just fine with a cell phone. What oil does Nick DiGiovanni use? What is that? Oh. Just set off the fire alarm and I wasn't even cooking. How crazy is that? What oil does Nick DiGiovanni use? I mean, I have a bunch of different types of oil. It just depends on the situation. It actually took me a little while cooking to learn what types of oils to use when. I just feel like you can really separate it into two categories. You have your low smoke point oils, and then you have your oils that have a high smoke point. It's actually really easy to look up. You can just look online, find the smoke point of any oil, and if it's over 450, you can use that for a super high heat steak or chicken or whatever you're doing. If it's got a lower smoke point, that's often not so good for high heat cooking, and maybe a little bit better to finish off a dish, like a nice olive oil on top of a salad. Last one. Thank you. Now finally we have the hows. How to pronounce Nick DiGiovanni. Oh, we've been practicing that one the whole video. This is funny because it's also something that I feel like it even took me a long time in my life to figure out, because everybody kind of pronounces things slightly different. If you split my last name into two different ways, it's DiGiovanni. So that makes it easier to think about DiGiovanni if you put it all together. Okay, Nick DiGiovanni, anyone can cook. Yeah, I sometimes use that little tagline that I kind of stole from Ratatouille because it's my favorite movie ever. But I do believe it. I feel like it's true. I feel like anyone can cook. You just need to learn some of those basics, and then after that, you can make anything. And the coolest part about it is that there's so many different ingredients, so many different types of food all around the world. So if different people in different places learn those basic rules and then start experimenting, you can come up with some really crazy things. Nick DiGiovanni food hacks. Trying to think of a really good food hack. I will say, most pizza that I've ever had from takeout is actually better the next day if I've put it in a pan with a bit of moisture in there and a lid on and just let it kind of steam and crisp up on the bottom. The bottom gets way more crispy than it was the day before, and then the top is nice and melty and cheesy, and that extra bit of crunch and crisp, I think it's better than it was when it was fresh. Last one, Nick DiGiovanni Dino Nuggets recipe. Great question here. The key to a really nice, juicy dino nugget is to make sure that you're putting some milk-soaked bread in the filling. That bread holds some of that moisture, that milk, and when it cooks, it retains all of that moisture so that when you finish the whole thing, it's got a really juicy bite to it. But the full recipe for my favorite dino nuggets is actually in my cookbook. So if you want to try to find that, it's all there. Toss it. All right, those are all the questions. Thanks so much for watching.